I've said a couple things even on this particular podcast. I'm just an honest person. This is who I am. I don't really have much to hide. This is what I've done. Hasn't always been pretty, but that's my mess. And here's my life, and I have some brokenness to it. And that's just how I lead. So we start with that, just trying to be honest with each other, with ourselves. And I think, obviously, from another biblical point of view, is can you have the heart of humility? That could be in your family, that could be in your business. It could be as a man. And, I try to lead with that heart of humility. I don't have all the answers. You're not going to come to our events and Brett's going to have all this amazing, mind-blowing content. I say, I'm not going to teach you anything that you don't already know. I'm going to be honest about that. But can we help each other have that heart of humility? Can we literally put other people first? Can we put our clients first, our team first, our family first? Can we put each other first? One of the things I would love to talk about is, wouldn't it be amazing if I could celebrate Mary Lou's success literally more than Brett's success? That'd make you probably pause a little bit if that was a group or that was a world. Now, that's hard to do because we're very selfish individuals. But if we can learn that heart posture, which obviously is, again, from the biblical Christ heart posture, if we could learn that, what a beautiful group, what a beautiful tribe or brotherhood or community that would be.
This is the Player Position Podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to today's episode of the Play Your Position podcast. It is game day today here at PYP, and that means I've got an amazing guest who is suited up, ready to take the field and lead us through his leadership journey. He's coming to us today from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and his name is Brett Snodgrass. Brett, are you ready for kickoff?
I'm ready. I'm coming out of the tunnel. Here we go.
Yeah, and the crowd goes wild.
I just jumped through the big ring, the paper.
And all the flames are coming out. Oh, that's awesome. So, team, we're going to have a great conversation today, but let me share some things about Brett with you to set the stage here. Brett Snodgrass is a seasoned real estate investor with over 15 years of expertise. He excels in flipping, creative financing, and business scaling. As the visionary behind Simple Quarters, he orchestrates the transaction of more than 250 properties annually, generating passive income through more than 50 creative financing deals. Seamlessly blending his strong faith with business prowess, Brett is a sought-after speaker, philanthropist, and founder of Iron Deep, a community supporting entrepreneurs on their unique journeys. Brett is a devoted family man. He finds joy in meaningful connections, literature, and partnering with impactful ministries. He's also written a book, which he's going to talk about today, called The Secret War Within. But before we get into that, Brett, why don't you set the stage for us and tell us your story about when you first got the call to leadership? How old were you, and what was going on in your life at the time? I also like guests to think about, was it something you were conscious of that it was happening to you, or was it more when you looked back at your life and you said, wow, that was really the beginning of my leadership journey?
No, thank you so much, Mary Lou, for having me on the podcast today. And that's a deep question. I think mine was really more of looking back. So I'm going to take you back a little bit to my childhood. So I grew up in Indiana, Hoosiers. Have you ever seen that movie, Hoosiers, the basketball movie? That was pretty much my life.
Wow.
So my dad was a high school basketball coach. My life was the game of basketball for about 23 years of my life. I played high school. I played for my dad. I went to college. I played at a small college, full ride scholarship here in Indiana called Huntington University. And I think really that was really the start of my leadership. I don't think I knew it at the time, but I think I just had a lot of eyes on me. I was modeling for other individuals. I was modeling for the youth. I did a lot of youth camps, and I coached up some of the younger basketball players coming up, and that was I think the start of my leadership. A lot of men and women start off maybe on the ball court or the ball field.
Mm-hmm.
It showed me how to work hard. I remember in my driveway shooting basketballs till the wee hours of the night, having to make so many in a row. I wouldn't come in for dinner. My parents had to force me to come in for dinner because I said I had to get my reps in, to get my shots in. So it really just kind of helped me get the consistency, through the game, the
Sure.
pressures, right? The pressures of sports, the
Mm-hmm.
mindsets of sports, the crowds watching you, and I think just like in business, I rose and I fell at certain seasons of my life, and that was, I think, where I joined the leadership, and then later, I think I transitioned the same mindset to business, and I
Mm-hmm.
love entrepreneurship, love to create, and that just led to real estate, and I've been doing that for 17 years now. But yeah, that's kind of, I think, where it all started back in my court days.
Okay, your dad isn't Gene Hackman, is it?
He's not. He's not. He acted like Gene
Just kidding.
Hackman.
Oh man,
he
wow
was he
that's a
was tough on
classic
me.
movie. That really
He,
that's if you haven't seen Hoosiers, do find it. I'm sure it's on one of the streaming platforms, and it's such a good story. It really is for many reasons. So you really it sounds like your character, your I'm sure your values and your work ethic was forged on the basketball court in many ways.
yeah.
And you know, I have spoken to many people over the years on this show, and sports tends to be one of those unifying experiences. Not everybody plays a team sport, but a lot of people, if they didn't play, someone in their family did, and they were
Mhm.
a witness to what it takes to practice without coming in for dinner because you set a goal for yourself, right? The expectations that not only you hold for yourself, but you mentioned the fans and the seats are, you're accountable to
Mhm.
them. And as a
Mhm.
young person, some young people are able to recognize that and really work
Mhm.
with it, and others don't, because of a lot of variables. But maturity is certainly one of those things. What made you choose? You went to college, full ride, played sports, basketball through that, and yet you chose an entrepreneurial path. Did
Mhm.
you know that that was your calling to pursue something on your own at a young age, or did that evolve out of I don't know. When did you realize I'm really cut out to be an entrepreneur?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many correlations to business and sports, and just to kind of piggyback, working on team sports, I use kind of the sports metaphors in our business of raising up the teams of who's going to
Hmm.
lead this team, who's going to captain this team. This is your team now, guys. Are you going to lead this? And I'm just the coach, right? Coaching it up. Yeah, just to take you into my story. So number one, I don't think I realized, a lot of my sports days honestly was Brett's glorification, was Brett get the glory, was Brett get his name in the paper, get my picture in the paper. I love the applause. I loved coming out the tunnel, people chanting my name. Was
Sure.
a lot of my own selfish glorification, and that kind of led through my 20s. I graduated and kind of wandered. I got an elementary education degree, so my parents are both teachers. So I didn't
Mm.
grow up in the entrepreneurial business world. I just typically do what your mom or dad does. So I became a teacher for about a year, and I just said, you know what, this is just not it for me. Ended up really was living a tough life in my 20s, a lot of late nights and partying things like that. Honestly, kind of taking into my story, ended up having a child at a
Mhm.
wedlock when I was about 26. Had to move home with my parents, so I was, selling some DVDs on eBay. Ended up being bootleg DVDs. So just taking in the snapshot, I'm getting
Oh,
sued by
wow.
I'm getting sued by Paramount Pictures, having a baby, moving home with my parents, 26, dead broke, and that's my life. So that just really got me a very self reflection mode, and I just said, I don't want my daughter who was being born to think her dad's a loser. So I started reading some books, and I got a hold of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I got a hold
Okay.
The Millionaire Next Door. My dad introduced me to a real estate investor when I was 26, and I got to work for him for about 2 years, learn what he did, learn he wasn't that smart and gifted. And I said, I could probably do that. And then I've been doing that about 20 or about 17 years later now. So I'm 44. That was about when I was 27, and that's kind of been the journey. So it wasn't a right away thing.
Right.
It evolved almost from a hard knocks life. Back against the wall, don't want to be a loser mentality to get it together, Brett, and then here we are. So
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. That's
yeah,
first of all, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing something like that. I think those moments are ones many people can relate to. Even if someone hasn't experienced exactly your circumstances, there's that dark night of the soul that
yeah,
happens, which I think is a nice segue into. I'd love for you to talk about your book a little bit, and then we'll circle back to the work you're doing with real estate and being a creator and such. This book, The Secret War Within. I don't want to spoil it for readers. I will say I did read it because you sent me an advance copy, and it was really gripping. It's very. I was pulled in immediately. So as a writer, you really did a nice job of, creating these characters, and it was very relatable. I think one of the big themes, and there's several, but one of the big themes for me is this idea of at some point, even when people seem to have it all, they still find themselves searching
mm,
and feeling like something's missing from their life. And the protagonist in this story is a man who is facing that dilemma. He's happily married, he's got money. I mean, he's done well in his life, and by all the external, markers of success, he's got it. And yet
mhm,
he's drinking a little too much in the
mhm,
office late at night, and then
mhm,
flirting with people that aren't his wife. There's
mhm,
what
mhm.
is it? What drew you to write this book, Brett, and how is it connected to what your Iron Deep mission?
Yeah,
Talk
yeah,
about that.
yeah. So yeah, interesting tale. I wanted to write a book. And obviously, we started this organization called Iron Deep. This is for men, for Christian men of faith, business owners. And I think it just all boiled down to there's a lot of non-fictional types of books on
Mm-hmm.
the business shelf. There's a lot of nonfiction books on the Christian shelf, the faith-based, bookstores. There's not a lot of allegories, and I was kind of related to maybe an allegory, a story written form. Maybe take yourself into the story instead of writing my story, taking them into the story so they
Mm-hmm.
can see the struggles, they can see the battle, they can see the war within the main character Nolan's life.
Right.
Obviously, this relates a lot to my story. Being I hang out with a lot of men, and it relates to their story. Really, when it gets down to it, no matter how successful they are, no matter how publicly success or how much money they have, we all sometimes have this inner battle, this inner insecurity that no one really knows. And really, that's where the title kind of comes in,
Mm-hmm.
the secret war within.
Yeah.
Because when it boils down to, a lot of people don't know, because as entrepreneurs, business owners, we're wearing a mask. We always have to have our game face on. We can't talk to our
Mm-hmm.
employees about things or our family about things, and it just kind of pulls back the curtain. And I just wanted to really show people some of the struggles, and it doesn't have to be successful. Men can be any. I wrote this probably for men. Women have also responded or enjoyed it as well. But this is
Mm-hmm.
probably more for the battles with men. As you see men struggle, some of the struggles they struggle with are, they try to numb themselves out, basically. They
Yes.
try to numb it with alcohol, drinking, women, porn, work, success, exterior, material, houses, cars, whatever it is. They're trying to numb themselves out from maybe just the reality of their own life. And they're just constantly searching and chasing. And that's what the main character did. He couldn't
Mm-hmm.
quite find what he was looking for. He had achieved so much, and all of his goals were met that he had achieved for himself, but something was still missing, this void in his life, and it's nothing that the external world could do, and he had to go seek his internal, and that's really where the story, the adventure, starts for him.
Yes.
And what does that look like? So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. Again, it's a very relatable story because it's set in modern times. You have references to social media, and obviously the vices that are at our fingertips now. Whether it's gambling, pornography, going down to the liquor store and picking up a bottle of wine. I mean, all of these are culturally in a strange way acceptable, even though they're extremely damaging.
Yeah.
And they are, as you just mentioned, they are a numbing device. They are not the solution to, they feel like the solution in the moment, right? I mean, Nolan
Yeah.
certainly was like, yeah. But even what I liked how you, what you did with him was really show that struggle in a, like you said, a fictional way versus a book, like here's a bullet point list.
Right. Like here's a bullet point list. Here's a scripture. Here's, that's all been done before.
Right.
Yeah.
And stories are, well, that's how our brains are wired. We're wired to relate to the scenes that you paint, the inner dialogue that Nolan has about when he's facing, he's on his adventure, and then when he comes back at the end. I agree. Yes, you wrote it about a man, and perhaps it's more of a man's story. But as a female, I really enjoyed it, and I could relate to, again, that searching, that looking around and saying, wow, I've achieved everything I set my mind to, and I'm still not satisfied. What's wrong with me?
Mm.
So what I want to have you go deeper that what is wrong? Why is this happening to so many people?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I come at it from a faith perspective. The book is based on a biblical faith type of perspective. And from my perspective is just, we have a creator, we have a designer, and the way we were designed was for the world not to fulfill us fully. We try and we desperately want it too. And all of the messages and the voices coming at us are telling us that it will. And we have to navigate through all those mixed messages, all those voices, the social media, the marketing, everything's coming at us so fast. And they're all saying, if you buy this or do this or want this or have this or look at this, then you'll have happiness, you'll have a fulfilling life, it'll bring you pleasure. And if you have the most pleasure, if you have all the pleasure, then maybe you'll be happy. And I think that's what the world's really telling us. If I can give you pleasure, pleasure, pleasure over and over and over again, then I think you'll be happy. And the truth is that if we're not doing what we were designed to do and we're not living out the meaning and the purpose that we are designed to live out, then we're not going to be truly fulfilled. And that this is a part of the human experience too. It's I don't know if in this particular world, from my point of view and my perspective, we will reach that total 100% fulfillment. I don't think that's what we weren't designed to have that particularly here. So that's kind of the journey that he goes through, searches it, and what does it look like? And obviously, it's from that faith perspective, a relationship with Christ, a relationship with the Father and the Holy Spirit, and that's the adventure that he goes on. And I kind of paint the picture of what that looks like to me. And I just try to maybe make it more of an intimate encounter in the faith perspective rather than a distant encounter. Sometimes we have that as a God, as a distant encounter. So I tried to maybe paint a picture of more of the intimacy of a father-like figure, someone walking with you, talking with you, leading you. And that's and then suffering is part of the human experience that we all suffer. And you get to see Nolan suffer. We all die. I mean, honestly, and that's just the reality of it. We don't want to think about it, but death is a reality. So I think it lets us just face as a reality. And I think what we try to do as men and women is we just try to numb the reality. We try to escape the reality. So anything that we can distract us from the reality of our existence or death or sickness or whatever loss, we just try to distract us and whatever we can do. And this book, I think, just paints hopefully the honest truth of what I see. And that's just my perspective. And it comes from that biblical point of view.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I mean, it's definitely a book of faith. And I wonder, when you're working, I mean, you're in real estate, you've been doing that for 17 years, you've been successful from a materialistic standpoint. When I say successful, I mean you're successful also in other areas of your life. But when you're working with men who are business owners or entrepreneurs, what kind of resistance do you meet? These are leaders in their communities, they're leaders in their families. And we live in a culture that promotes, still to this day, You got to be independent. You got to be strong at all costs. You're the protector. You're the provider to a degree, even though many households today are two income because of the cost of living. So let's make that clear. It's not like our parents where you could live in a good place and traditionally the man, the dad or the husband is working and the wife is a homemaker. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't exist today, but the reality is many families are two income families to some level. So you're in real estate, you're out, doing deals and you're helping people achieve their goals. How do you weave in some of these lessons that you've learned, some of the lessons that your fictional character Nolan is experiencing and teaching in real life?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you lead, I guess, is what I'm really getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great question. Number one, I think, if you come to our Iron Deep events, one of our main core values is just to get radically honest. And that is with God, it's with yourself, it's with each other. How do you do that? And I think I lead that way. So if you come to one of our events, that's just who I am. Obviously, I've said a couple things even on this particular podcast. I'm just an honest person. This is who I am. I don't really have much to hide. This is what I've done. Hasn't always been pretty. And but that's my mess. And here's my life, and I have some brokenness to it. And that's just how I lead. So we start with that, just trying to be honest with each other, with ourselves. And I think obviously from another biblical point of view is can you have the heart of humility? That could be in your family, that could be in your business, that could be as a man. And I try to lead with that heart of humility. I don't have all the answers. You're not going to come to our events and Brett's going to have all this amazing, mind-blowing content. I say, I'm not going to teach you anything that you don't already know. I'm going to be honest about that. But can we help each other have that heart of humility? Can we literally put other people first? Can we put our clients first, our team first, our family first? Can we put each other first? One of the things I would love to talk about is, wouldn't it be amazing if I could celebrate Mary Lou's success literally more than Brett's success?
Mm-hmm.
That'd make you probably pause a little bit if that was a group or that was a world. Now, that's hard to do because we're very selfish individuals.
I know.
But if we can learn that heart posture, which obviously is again from the biblical Christ heart posture, if we could learn that, I mean, what a beautiful group, what a beautiful tribe or brotherhood or community that would be. Now we're going to have brokenness and our stuff's going to kind of come in, but I think humility is where it starts. I talk a lot about that. We're very pride. Every sin, every destruction starts with pride. It's the most powerful thing, and pride is I am better than you, or it's all about me. It's a selfishness. Humility is, can I put you first? Can I celebrate you first? Can I put your needs actually before my own? That's tough to do. That's a lifelong pursuit.
It is.
I think that's where it can begin, though.
So, what is there a pattern that you've noticed that brings men to Iron Deep? Something in common that they're, when you look at there's a room full of them, and they've said yes to what you have. Is there something that stands out above the rest that they're looking for, hoping to find?
Yeah, I think. Again, it kind of comes back to that brotherhood. It's just it's come as you are. I think again, we kind of break the ice by being honest. They can take off their mask. They can just come as they are. They're going to be accepted. They're going to be loved. That like-mindedness, business owner, people that can relate to that. What I have seen from my own experiences. I've been in a lot of mastermind, real estate, business types of groups over here, and which are great. They've helped me out so much, and I've built some great things with those particular groups. But at the same time, what can I get out of this? I'm going to put my highlight reel up, most of the time. And that's the way it's going to be. I don't have a lot of deep relationships from those particular groups. I might have one or two here and there. Or you got kind of the faith-based church world, which is great. You got your small groups, but then, we're business owners. We're leading this whole thing that people maybe don't understand. And that's a little bit different. So I can't go into those groups and be like, what's your goal? And I'm like, well, I want to flip 22 houses this month and try to do a revenue of 2 million. I don't know, whatever it looks like. You can't say those types of things in that particular group like you can in this other group. So it really just kind of merges the two together. So men that come to our group are men that love business. They love to create. They're very driven type A individuals, but they're also men of faith that they want to lead in their faith. They want to lead their families well. And those are the types. Those are 3 areas that we really dig into: our faith, our families, and our business is the type of men that love our organization.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
Sounds like you've used the word brotherhood. It sounds like that's lacking the connection, because when you're running a business or you're, creating the next thing, whatever that may be, you're so focused on that. But being able to bond with other men who understand your journey, that's powerful. And you don't get that. You don't get that with a post on social media as much as, we like to think we're connecting. It's a way of connecting, but it isn't the same as being in the room with other people where there's in some, there's a curriculum in a way. Like tonight, guys, we're going to talk about X. We're going to talk about Y.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've created a safe space for men to let their guards down, which again, our culture has not traditionally allowed men to do that. It's not okay. I think the tide is shifting. Would you agree with that? We're starting to see, and I go to sports. I've noticed in the last, I don't know, not that long, a few years, if that, when coaches, particularly football coaches, are interviewed post-game, there's so much more, I love these guys. Like love is used. And that wasn't the way it was.
It wasn't Bobby Knight's language, so.
No. It wasn't Jimmy Johnson's either.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, and that's neat. You formed this about a year ago, so you're pretty new on this journey.
I am, yeah. And I think we did an event a few months ago, and I think this kind of hits home, is just relational versus transactional. And most of the time in the business world, we live in a transactional world. Maybe a social media could be a transactional world. I'm going to post this. Great. I get some comments. It injects some dopamine into me because people like it or whatever. And it's just transactional. This is more just relational, that, I want to build, the relationship with these guys. I want to the whole Iron Deep thing was, iron sharpens iron, and going deeper with God and deeper with each other. So it's really just doing life with these guys, getting messy with these guys. So we try to do the curriculum, the structure that is challenging, but it opens that, it breaks that up, and it opens up that, again, the brotherhood, the connection, the relational side that these guys that probably aren't used to. And some guys might feel uncomfortable, and it's okay. It's okay. But even if they are uncomfortable, which I think is uncomfortable for a lot of us, because we have them do uncomfortable things, by the end, it builds a relationship because you crank up the intensity. When you crank up the intensity, it builds that deep connection, right? Because you think about sports. Let's go back to sports. When you got a team of 5 guys on the basketball court, and they're working together, and they're doing conditioning, and they're sweating together, and they've spent 6 months together, and they're trying to achieve something, a victory, you remember those times because you've cranked up the intensity on those relationships. Well, when guys enter 30, 40, 50 years old, 60, they don't have that anymore.
No.
They don't.
Right. And for a lot of them, if they played sports, that was the only time they had that.
Yeah.
Again, which is coming back to a much larger question about, what can we do moving forward to eradicate the loneliness epidemic? It's not just men, it's women too. the pandemic certainly amplified the loneliness, but this pursuit mentality, this I've got to chase the next thing mentality, and the pressure that people feel. And it's all ages. Young people are feeling enormous pressure to, you know, achieve and then promote their achievements and become an influencer. And there's all these factors that are swirling around that, like you said it earlier, we're under so much pressure,
Mhm.
and there's so much coming at us all the time. Going back to, then it becomes easy to find that escape, whatever it may be for the person, just to get me through. I can't deal with this anymore. Let me not feel right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
And but it sounds to me like you're doing with Iron Deep is saying you are going to feel, and it's not going to always feel good,
Mhm.
but the only way you're going to grow and actually get what you truly want is by going through the discomfort, because we do all suffer. Life is not just pleasure,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just not.
And I think on the other side, obviously, this is not my quote, but on the other side of suffering can be greatness. I mean, you think about
Hmm.
some of the, let's say, go back to the faith for me, like some of my most intimate moments with God was when I was suffering
Yes.
in certain moments. And you're right. I mean, we're going after productivity. We things are so much faster now. We have AI. We have
Oh,
we have
AI.
Zoom calls.
Yep.
I mean, remember Back to the Future movies? They'd have the screen, and you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing!" And now we're doing that every single day. We don't have to get together, and people are just relying on all this stuff, and we're so more productive, but we're just not present. It's hard for us to have a friend over, to spend 2 hours with them, to go over to their house for dinner. I don't know. It just seems like that's becoming just more and more distant in our
Yeah.
world, and because we're too productive, I think,
I
right?
agree. We are. We have taken productivity to a
Like we can't even go to
level.
the grocery store.
Well, what's that ad that was playing? I'm at the football game, I'm at the grocery store.
Yeah, I
It's for
know.
Instacart, right?
Yeah,
I go to the football game and order your groceries, right? That's the world that we live in now.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right. So many of those voices and messages. I mean, I got a 17-year-old, so it's like to keep up with all that, to keep up with. I mean, I mean, you're a podcaster. You're like, oh, even I have to post 60 times a week on all these different channels, and I got to do all. It's just a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And then you see someone else doing more, and you're like, oh, I got to do that. I got to do that
Hmm.
now, and it just never ends. So
No, it doesn't. And the freedom comes when you say, no, I don't have to do all that, because it's not
yes,
making any difference. I've run experiments where, I did that. One of the popular ones back in the day, I don't know if it is anymore. Going back like 10 years was, write a blog post every day for 30 days, right? Do a podcast every day, whatever. And when I first started my podcasting journey, I was like, no, I'm going to do it my way, because I was doing it for the joy of having conversations with people who, like yourself, are doing interesting things in the world, and it's evolved like everything else. And have I felt, as we all do, pressure at times, like, oh, maybe I do need to be on TikTok. Maybe I do need to. Nope. I've
yep,
chosen my channels. I'm on
hmm,
LinkedIn and Instagram. That's
hmm,
it. I
hmm,
deleted Twitter when it changed its name. I said, no more. I've never been on TikTok. I have no interest. People send me, oh, you got to see this thing on TikTok. And, I'll open the link and it'll say, oh, you can sign up. I'm like, no, I'm not.
not
Because
gonna do.
again, but it comes,
Draw a boundary.
you've got to draw boundaries, and it
Yeah,
takes time,
yeah,
and it takes some suffering, because there's the whole FOMO, like, well, maybe would be better if I,
hmm,
you know,
yeah. And I think it. Well, I was gonna say, I think it just depends on one of the things I've been kind of. This is a very present thing in my life. Is one of the things so to create Iron Deep was to go deep with certain guys, and I know that I can't do
mhm.
that with very many people.
You can't.
You can't do it with very many people. So like I have a group right now. It's called the Iron Core. The max was 12. I have 10 guys
Mhm,
in it right now. And I was like, okay, obviously it goes back to Christ and the disciples, but I said I can't go. It's either
mhm.
deep or wide. I got to go. Am I going to go wide and just get a bunch of followers and a bunch of sales and whatever that looks like, or in big events and big conference rooms, or am I going to go deep, like 10 people? And
Yep.
that's just what I've chosen here. And that's tough to do because the world is telling us, no, you got to go bigger. You got to do this.
Scale. You got to scale. That's the big sexy word right now is,
Right.
are you scaling? And I agree with you, Brett. I'm much more interested in depth than width. And I personally think that's, I don't know. I think just because of how I'm built, it just works for me. I look at people who have enormous followings, and we can all think of, particularly in the personal development space, but we have to remember that some of these people have been at it for 40 or 50 years. That is a long time. And that's the another piece of this equation is there's this pressure for things to happen unnaturally fast because people will see and form and they'll come to a conclusion that is often faulty based on a superficial thing like numbers. Oh, that video got 1 million views. They must be raking it. No, a lot of those people aren't making it at all.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And
So
I think that's what we do. There's that whole
Yeah.
comparison trap. There's a song out there. There's a rapper named like NF, and he sings this song and he says that, people think that and he made it pretty big now, but he said, I've been doing this for 12 years and I was a nobody, right? And
does he have that song Hope?
yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah. So I follow him some, but he's like, you're right. I mean, they start comparing, they're like real estate guys. They say, oh my gosh, I want to do what you do. They've been doing it for a year. And I was like, well, I've been doing it for 17. I mean, of course I'm going to be a little bit further along.
I know, but the technology has created this whole new way of how people interact with the world. So I'd love for you to switch gears just a little bit. You're a parent. For parents who are listening, what are some things you think are important for parents to be paying attention to today, based on your experiences and the fact that you are in your 40s and you remember life before the internet to a degree, right?
Yeah. I was at a camp with my teen daughter a year ago or so called JH Ranch. It was out in California, and it was a father-daughter type of camp. And they talked about technology a little bit. And so many parents, especially like in our space, like Christian church space, you're like, oh, I'm so against technology. And with my kids, and it is because they get so sucked in, and we're all sucked in, and everyone's sucked in. Someone's addicted to it. But they also said that, your kids are migrants to technology, right? They don't know any different, and we're immigrants. So we're come at it from before coming in. We're like, man, I remember when we didn't have the cell phones and we didn't have TikTok and we didn't have all this stuff, and I wish life was like that. And you're telling your kids that, and they don't know what you're even talking about.
No, they don't.
They've never lived that way before.
How do you cross that divide? What are some things you picked up as a parent? Because what you just said, Brett, I think is, and it's not just in a parenting relationship, it's at work too. When you have employees that are working for you who they are digital natives, they are those migrants who've only known this. And then you've got Gen Xers and boomers and upper millennials who, no, we remember when there wasn't this. And that can cause real tension and divides.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still navigating this. I do not have a great answer for this. I mean, me and my wife talk about this all of the time.
Wow.
But I think number one, like what's the environment of your home? What are you doing? What are you modeling? If my kids aren't going to do what I say, they're going to do what I do. Like if I'm on my tech and I could be checking an email and I think, oh, that checking email is fine, but I'm not doing this other stuff. It's all the same. So I think it's just, what are you doing? What's the environment of your home? Are you creating that environment of certain times? Kids going outside. Are you connecting with them in different ways or different levels? Dinner tables. So I just start there. Just evaluate your home. What's your home like? And are you creating that environment? because kids are just like you. They want the dopamine hit, and the dopamine hit comes from technology. They want the little fast screen switches and the ding dings and the games, and they want all that stuff. Just like we want the email to come in and we want the like on Facebook, whatever. Like we all are craving that. These companies, they're not stupid. They're very, very smart. So I think just talking about it, being aware about it, I definitely don't have the answers. There's got to be some boundaries around it, and we're trying to navigate that with our own family. Like, what does this look like? We know we can't just be Amish and not do
Right.
anything with it. But how do we navigate it? And we've had ups and downs with it, and we know when the downs come because we're drifting. And I think it all boils down to maybe intentionality, and it's just what is your intention of your family? What's the goal of your family, and what's the mantra, and what's your purpose, and what are you going after? So that's a couple things that we're trying to do, but I don't think that helps your answer. So honestly, I have no idea.
Well, I wasn't looking for the answer because I don't think the answer exists, but I love how you just talked through what you're experiencing right now. What's it's very honest and it's very real. And as you were talking, I was imagining, homes across this country and across this world, first world nations anyway, where these kinds of conversations are happening and there is tension between young people who've only known life with a device in their hand, with a screen available everywhere, versus parents who do remember a time. And I think as leaders of our families and our work, one of the skills we need to develop is just immediately defaulting to, well, I remember when it didn't exist, because that's a common, those words have come out of my mouth. I mean,
Yes.
it's
or we're just going to get rid of it all. We're going to throw away all the TVs, throw away all the iPads. Yeah.
Not reality, because guess what? They go to school and they're exposed.
Right.
So it's not like it's just back in the day, like just say no, Nancy Reagan's whole thing about drugs. Well, you can't just say no to the cell phone.
Right. Because everyone has it. Yeah.
Because everyone has it.
And maybe take yourself back to your childhood. Like for me, when I was in the 6th grade, I remember everyone had Guess jeans. Like that was like the big thing back in the day in the 90s. Everyone had Guess jeans. So like I wanted a pair of Guess jeans. Well, Guess jeans, they weren't, they were a pair of jeans. They weren't probably that detrimental to my health. But now it's the same thing. Oh, well, Johnny has a phone. Why can't I have a phone? He's 10. And I'm like, what do you say? And we just know the detriments of the health with it. So it's a tough, because now they're comparing to all their friends who have it. And it's a battle. It is a battle. So
it is a battle. And again, it's a big leadership issue, because you were saying the environment that you create in your home. Do you, with the work that you do in real estate, Brett, do you have a team, or are you just a solo doing your own deals?
No, we have a team. Yeah. So we have about 16 people in Indianapolis.
So, let's talk about how have you created a company culture that is addressing some of the challenges that we all face today, including the distraction of getting the ding that, ooh, someone just liked my post, or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, obviously been able to lead a team and kind of build that family-like culture. And you can take some of this. I've tried to take some of this and put it into my own family. Again, back to what is the mission of the organization? What are our values? What are we going to be all about? And just trying to navigate that, just like in the sports world, just to kind of go towards these goals and to align on these and to build accountability with certain metrics that we want to achieve. And why do we want to achieve these? And coming back to the why, that's what I love, the culture. And it comes back to just as a humble leader, putting them first. Some things that I do with my team is I meet with them. What are their goals? What are their dreams? How can I help them achieve what they want to achieve? And that's what I love to do. And, one of my huge passions is to raise up leaders. And that's even one of our missions in our organization is to raise up leaders within our organization. And that's probably why I do Iron Deep.
Right.
I love to raise up leaders in my family. I want to raise up leaders on the team so that my some of my key words in my team is, who's going to lead this team? Most people think that, oh, Brett's going to lead this team. This is your team. Who's going to I might be coaching, but who's going to captain this team? People are going to lead the captains. They're going to lead the two guys that walk out on that center floor. This is what we're going to do, guys. And leadership's not about title. It's about influence. Like, who's going to influence this team? For example, I just hired this girl last week, and she's a virtual assistant. So she works in the Philippines. And just hired her. Anyways, we were role playing on a call. So we do sales, we do negotiation, sales calls. And she's an assistant. She's been with us for like a week. And we're doing this role playing. And then she says, well, can I say something? And I said, yeah. Well, she went on this is what I think that you should have did in the role play. And I don't think you said that quite right. And I was blown away. And I was like, that's a leadership quality. She has no title, but the influence that she had just kind of blew me away. So that's what I love to do, raising up leaders. And I think we can do that in our families, our businesses. And I try to build that culture. And I think, again, the heart of humility, I've had to learn that. It's not all about Brett. Brett doesn't have to be on stage. I get more excited when you're on stage. You're getting the glory, and Brett can sit back and just root you on. So
that's nice. And the fact that you allowed her to speak openly about what she noticed, and you received her feedback without shutting her down or, getting your feathers ruffled. And we all know people where they can't take anybody questioning or suggesting that perhaps it could have been done a different way.
Yeah. And I think there's this one thing, I'm not sure where this came from, but it was about wolves, right? And there was the Wolf Project, something like that. And there was they went and saw these wolves, and there was this pack of wolves, and they tried to guess which one the alpha wolf was, like which one was the leader.
Yes.
And they started guessing, like maybe the loud one, maybe the pacing one, and it was the sleeping one. He didn't have to do anything because everyone else was leading the pack. He was resting, right? And I think that just goes back to if you can build a good culture, if you build a good team, the leader sometimes doesn't even have to say anything.
Yes.
He's built the team. He just says, he might put his input here and there, but a good team, I don't think he has to say a whole lot, honestly.
Yeah, I like that. Well, speaking of resting, what do you do to take care of yourself as a leader? What are some of your strategies to make sure that you're at your best as much as possible?
Yeah. I probably haven't gotten this all correct throughout the years, but obviously, I Sabbath day. So again, a faith-based practice. Sundays, is a Sabbath day, family day. Definitely take a rest there. I don't work a lot on the weekends, so I really try to shut it down. Mornings, quiet time, prayer time. I'm typically the first one up, 5 a.m. I'm up. That first 30, 40 minutes, I'm praying. I'm spending time in the Word. I'm resting there. I think the other things is just, how do I maintain my energy? So that's making sure I'm moving, making sure I'm eating healthy. Sleeping obviously is very, very important. I haven't got this all correct over the years. I've had many times where, I've sacrificed my own body, my own health, but those are some of the ways.
Nice.
I love to get away with my wife. We do a lot of little, quarterly types of trips, doing things like that as well.
Yeah, important at getting a change of scene, and turning it off. Not being on 24/7, which again is, if you're an entrepreneur, that is very difficult to do. And Team PYP, you know who you are.
I think you said it, but changing your environment. I love doing that. So we have I don't own it, but there's a log cabin about an hour from our house that I do a lot of our my quiet time there. My wife and I's retreats there. My team goes there.
Yeah.
It's like in the nature, just to get off site, just to kind of rejuvenate.
Nature is so, there's tons of studies about the importance of immersing ourselves in the natural world. And it is restorative, and it doesn't take a lot. It's shown 2 days away can just be, you come back a completely renewed person. So
yeah. definitely.
That's great. So speaking of, your work and all the stuff you do, where do you hang out online, Brett? Where can people learn more about Iron Deep and what you do with real estate and all that good stuff?
Yeah, no, thank you so much again for having me on the podcast. So our website's irondeep.com. We get a lot of things on there. Our events are on there. The book is on there. It's also on the major, publications, Amazon and stores like that, Barnes and Noble. So irondeep.com is number one. Social media wise, I'm more of a Facebook/LinkedIn guys.
Okay.
And probably more because that's maybe where business men my age hang out, I'd say more than
That's
TikTok.
honest. Did you
So
ever think
that's,
those words would come out of your mouth? Men
yeah,
my
I know.
age.
I
Oh
know.
God, it
I
sneaks
know.
up on you. One day you're like, wait, what a minute. How old am I?
I know. I
I
know.
know,
It
it's
does for
crazy.
sure. But
Yeah.
that's where I hang out on social media.
Okay.
But I'm not I'm not a huge social media guy.
Yeah.
I'm on there and you can see some of the things, but yeah, that's kind of where we hang out. I'm more of an in-person guy. So
Yeah.
again, if you're interested in what we do, check me out, reach out to me on irondeep.com, and I'd love to chat with you.
Definitely. Yeah, team, I'll put links to connect with Brett on his show notes page at pyppodcast.com. And if you're listening on your phone, it'll be right underneath there. You just poke it and it'll take you right to irondeep.com. And if you know anybody who wants, likes to read stories, or you or somebody likes to read stories, get The Secret War Within. It makes a great gift. It's very thought-provoking, and I think it's a tale of our times. I really do. If you're looking for an answer, you're not going to find it, but you're going to find several answers as you interpret them, which I think is one of the many strengths of this book. And speaking of books, Brett, what are a couple of books that you have found instrumental on your leadership journey? You mentioned earlier Think and Grow Rich, and also Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Those you discovered in your 20s.
Yeah. I'll name a couple here. Number one, I think one of the very early instrumental books was called The Millionaire Next Door.
Yes, I have that book. Yeah.
And it was just such I was broke at the time, and I was driving a decent car, and I just remember really learning that the millionaires of the world are typically the guy that lives next door. It's not the flashy driving the brand new in the mansions. It's just they got a normal job. They're just, living next door, and you wouldn't know they were a millionaire basically. So that's a great book. A couple of books that really impacted me lately: The True Measure of a Man. Richard E. Simmons wrote that. I read that about 5 years ago. He wrote the foreword for my book. Very impactful man in my life. It's called The True Measure of a Man. And then another one I would just recommend, I think lately, is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. That's by John Mark Comer. And it kind of talks a lot about what we've been talking about how to be still when we're all hurried. And how do you eliminate that from your life? How do you be relaxed? How do you be present?
Yeah.
It's another great book.
Love it.
So
I will have links to these books for Team PYP to check out and possibly buy for themselves. Or again, books make great gifts, people. It's always so nice when I receive a gift from a guest, gift of a book from a guest, because A, I can get to read it before we talk, and B, I'm a reader. So
awesome.
Before we say goodbye, Brett, first of all, I just want to thank you for your time today, but I want to give you the last word. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you would like to finish this wonderful conversation off with?
Yeah, I think we talked about a lot of amazing things, Mary Lou. So thanks again for having me. I'm just going to go back to, if you're a leader, there was a book, Good to Great, and he talked about the best companies, the best businesses in the world. There was something different about them. What was that difference about them? And he said typically the main leader was a leader of humility. And that's, I think, the greatest virtue that you can have as a person, as a man, as a woman, as a leader, is a leader with humility. So I'm going to leave with that.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical taste. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.